I'll tell you a story. Okay, you are having two fossas, pterygopalatine fossa, infratemporal fossa. These two fossas are nothing but secret rooms found within us. Yes, I'm going to tell you a small story to understand things. You're having a house, you're having a big master bedroom, but within the big master bedroom there is a secret room. So the secret room where it will be just behind your wardrobe like this. So the wardrobe has secret room. If you enter the wardrobe, that is found at the posterior aspect of the room. Yes, the room, the master bedroom which I am saying is maxilla. The maxilla bone which is lodging the maxillary sinus is our master bedroom. The master bedroom posterior wall is opened. We can enter into a new world. Yes, the new world name is pterygopalatine fossa. Why it is a new world? Because it has many important parasympathetic ganglion, it has important neurovascular structures. If you enter into that world, you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere because telling about the pterygopalatine fossa anatomy, if you enter in pterygopalatine fossa through the maxillary bone means you can go medially through sphenopalatine foramen into the nasal cavity. Yes, so the palatine bone and the sphenopalatine foramen forms the medial boundary of the pterygopalatine fossa. Then laterally you can go to the infratemporal fossa through the pterygomaxillary fissure. Yes, the pterygoid process forms the lateral boundary along with the maxillary bone. The posterior boundary is formed by sphenoid bone which is having two foramens, foramen rotundum and pterygoid canal. These are two important foramens because the foramen rotundum will carry maxillary nerve. This maxillary nerve is very important. Then pterygoid canal which carries greater superficial petrosal nerve. Then we are going to the floor. The floor is a free space leading into the greater palatine canal which relates the greater palatine vessels. Okay, so medially you can go into nasal cavity, laterally you can go into infratemporal fossa, inferiorly you can go into greater palatine canal, posteriorly you can bypass the two foramens, you can reach into the cranial fossa. Now say, isn't it a magical world? Okay, now you are entering into the secret door into your wardrobe found at the posterior wall of your bedroom. Okay, in that area you are having secret stairs. The secret stairs is going down. Yes, so it is nothing but a stairs which is found inferior through a stairs. So as I already said, using the stairs you can reach from pterygopalatine fossa to the infratemporal fossa. Yes, the stairs reach to the another secret place, that is infratemporal fossa. As it is stairs leading downwards, it is found inferior to our temporal bone. Again it is found inferior to our sphenoid bone. Yes, the roof of the infratemporal fossa is formed by sphenoid bone. See, the posterior wall of the pterygopalatine fossa is formed by sphenoid bone. Now the roof of the infratemporal fossa is formed by sphenoid bone. Now the sphenoid bone, that is greater wing of sphenoid bone, is having two foramens, that is foramen ovale and foramen spinosum. Yes, infratemporal fossa can communicate with the cranial cavity through these two foramens. The foramen ovale transmitting mandibular nerve, axillary meningeal artery, lesser petrosal nerve, emissary vein. Foramen spinosum transmitting nervus spinosus and middle meningeal artery. Then what are all the other boundaries? As I already said, middle boundary is formed by lateral pterygoid plate and pterygomaxillary fissure formed along with the maxillary bone. So the middle boundary is lateral pterygoid plate. Superior boundary is, as I already said, it is none other than sphenoid bone. The anterior boundary same, that is posterior wall of the maxillary bone. Laterally it is having zygomatic process and ramus of the mandible. It is not a clear landmark, but it is found at the outermost aspect. Posterior, inferior laterally it is free, it can spread to other spaces which forms the extended infratemporal fossa. The infratemporal fossa can spread infection to masticator space also. Now I have said a story giving a detailed description about these two fossa. Now these two fossa, the content is very important. Pterygopalatine fossa has pterygopalatine ganglion, maxillary nerve, maxillary artery. Infratemporal fossa is having aortic ganglion, chorda tympani branch of the facial nerve which comes out of the stylomastoid foramen. It comes through this only. Then it is also having maxillary artery. Then it is having the contents of the foramen ovale. Yeah, it is having mandibular nerve also. Other does not form the contents because axillary meningeal artery, middle meningeal artery, nervus spinalis all are going from the facial nerve back into the cranial fossa. So those structures doesn't form the content of the infratemporal fossa. So these two foramens, why I am saying side to side, because if you clearly understand these two foramens, you will understand the spread of the neck space infection. Then you will understand the most two important ganglions, pterygopalatine ganglion and aortic ganglion. Yes, now we are going to discuss about the two ganglions, pterygopalatine ganglion and aortic ganglion. There are four parasympathetic ganglion found at the head and neck region. So out of four, these two are very important. The pterygopalatine ganglion has preganglionic fibers coming from the greater superficial petrosal nerve. The greater superficial petrosal nerve is a branch of facial nerve arising out of the genicular ganglion. It has postganglionic fibers through the maxillary division of the trigeminal nerve through zygomatic branches going into the lacrimal gland for lacrimation. Now the aortic ganglion is concerned with salivation. So remember, aortic ganglion is a parasite of ear. So what are the structures related with ear? It can take it as pre and post ganglionic fibers. Yes, the pre-ganglionic fibers is derived from ear, that is tympanic plexus gives away lesser petrosal nerve. Lesser petrosal nerve comes out of the lesser petrosal foramen, which is again coming out of the foramen ovale into the aortic ganglion. So the preganglionic fiber is lesser petrosal nerve. Now the postganglionic fibers are auriculotemporal nerve. Through the auriculotemporal nerve, it reaches the parotid gland, giving away secretomotor fibers for the parotid gland. So it receives parasympathetic nucleus, that is salivatory nucleus. So the superior salivatory nucleus is the site of origin for preganglionic fibers. So superior salivatory nucleus is the site of origin for the preganglionic fibers of the parotid gland alone. Okay, as I already said, the importance of sphenopalatine foramen found at the lateral wall of the nasal cavity. The sphenopalatine foramen is the most common site of origin of juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibroma. It is a peculiar tumor found at adolescent males because they are having under the influence of testosterone hormone, some of the tissues or cells will proliferate and form the angiofibroma. The clinical presentation of this tumor is it will be having a profuse bleeding and will be having a nasal obstruction. The bleeding will not be seen in any other case. That much profuse the bleeding will be. The juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibroma is a benign tumor, so it has staging also. The staging is Ratkowski. The definitive mode of treatment for juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibroma is surgical management. So you can approach the tumor based on the extent. You can reach transnasal, sublabial, or through lateral rhinotomy incision leading into a facial deglobing procedure or medial maxillectomy. Through all these procedures, you can approach the juvenile nasal angiofibroma found at the lateral wall of the nasal cavity.